Okay, we're honored today to have as our guest for interview by the Archives and History Committee of the Mobile Bar Association, Donald Brutkiewicz Sr., who was admitted to the practice of law in Alabama more than 50 years ago. This is Mitchell Latoff. I'm chairman of the Archives and History Committee. We also have attending this interview Barbara Rhodes, Executive Director of the Mobile Bar Association. Don, this interview is being transcribed by court report and recorded on video for review, preservation, and dissemination by the Archives and History Committee of the Mobile Bar Association. Does the Archives and History Committee and the Mobile Bar Association have your permission to add the transcript and the video to its historical records and to edit, title, and release for viewing by members of the Mobile Bar Association and or the public, as may be decided by the Executive Committee of the Mobile Bar Association?
You do, sir.
Let's start out. We'd like to start out with your career as an attorney. Tell us what law school you attended when you admitted to the practice of law, and let's start there.
I attended the University of Alabama Law School, and I graduated in January 1954. We didn't have to take the bar examination at that time, and so I came to Mobile, and I had to go into the military, and I went into the Air Force at the JAG and stayed there 2 years and got out in 1956. Now, I was born in Mobile, and my maternal grandfather was Dan Booth, who was a passenger train engineer for the L&N. And in 1905 or something like that, he made a 90-minute emergency run from Mobile to New Orleans with a track over. And from that point on, he was known as Cannonball Dan. And old Cannonball, several years later, was killed under the with hands on the throttle about 1920. And in 1920, when he died, was accidentally killed. He had a wife and two minor children. One of them was my mother, Lily Booth, and the other one was her little brother, Carl Booth, who later became district attorney or circuit solicitor of Mobile County from 1943 until 1970. Well, when I got out of the service, finished up my JAG career and my Air Force career, I was able to get a job with my mother's little brother, Carl Booth. Now, I came along in 1930, and my mother and Carl Booth, my sister and brothers, were very, very close, stayed close all their lives. In fact, when I was born in 1930, he was at my christening and was named my godfather. So later on, when I was an adult, he not only was my uncle, my godfather, but we were close personal friends and stayed that way, and fellow employees for the rest of Carl's life. Well, anyhow, so when I first went to work for Carl Booth.
What year did you finished law school in 54?
54, and started practicing law in 56. But I was a JAG in the military.
Okay, you were in the military for 2 years.
Yeah.
What branch of the service were you in?
In the Air Force.
And
I was in the Air Force. I was in SAC, General LeMay's headquarters. And you know, I was in Topeka, Kansas, and LeMay was at Offutt Air Force Base, and he would fly from Offutt to Topeka and never leave the flight line. All of the general and 2 or 3 colonels would come out to meet him at the flight line. He never came on. Well, anyhow, and
now you were in the legal division.
I was in JAG.
Did you actually try military cases during those 2 years?
I tried a lot. I tried a lot of special court martials. I never tried the general court martial.
Okay, the special court martials, were you usually defense or were you the prosecutor?
Well, when I came in, I was a second lieutenant, and it was an oddball. I was probably one of the few second lieutenants in JAG, and they gave me an opportunity to sign up for another year, and I could get my silver ball. But I stayed in. After 18 months after my commission, they made me a first lieutenant. So in special court martials, which the special court martial track cases like petty larceny, assault with a knife, assault with a gun, insulting a superior officer and stuff with superior non-commissioned officer. You insulted the commissioned officer, you went to a general court martial. You insulted a senior non-com, they put you in chapter 13. I mean, they put you in special court martial. I tried a lot of special court martial. Did a lot of line of duty investigations. Well,
now, where were you stationed at when you went to service?
Well, I was stationed at Forbes Air Force Base in Topeka, Kansas, but after about 4 months, General LeMay decided to take his B-47s and his atomic bombs over to the Sahara Desert in French Morocco, and I left with all those B-47s and atomic bombs and everything, and went to French Foreign Legion base. And Ben Guerrero.
Yeah, how long were you at that base?
90 days. 90 days.
And that was located where?
It was located in the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert. It was about 40 miles from Marrakesh and French Morocco. And the French had occupied Morocco, and they were fighting over there. I mean, on Saturday afternoon, my best friend over there was a Presbyterian minister who was not only the minister, he was the operations officer for the detachment in Ben Guerrero, and he and I used to get bus trips all over Morocco. We went to Marrakesh and Casablanca, then to Nouakchott, all the different places. But since he was operations officer, he set up the bus trip. He and I were good friends, and he was complete, absolute teetotaler. But we'd go into a restaurant or something, and I'd order a beer or a cocktail or something, you know, and we got through to pay the check. He bought a check. I said, well, Bob, you don't drink. Why are you going to pay? No, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
While you were overseas, what type of, you went to JAG, what were you doing at that time?
Actually, when I was in Ben Guerrero, I would go up to Nouakchott, which is Casablanca. Whenever they have a special court martial, particularly if it was some of our people there, they would send me up to Nouakchott for a trial special court martial. Nouakchott was located in Casablanca, about 200 miles from my station. The place where I was the detachment associated with the French Foreign Legion, right out in the desert. And anyhow, I would go up to Nouakchott and try cases. And I did I did participate in a lot of line of duty investigation. And line of duty, it means that it's almost like insurance investigation. In fact, the matter is, in particular, my colonel my colonel, the commanding officer, was before he was an insurance adjuster before the war and before World War II. And when World War II came in, he was the head of a division that investigated accidents and stuff like that. So he loved line of duty investigation, and I got along great with him. His name was Moran, and all of us junior officers called him Sergeant Morad.
Okay.
And one day, let me tell you this story, I like hearing myself. One day, as I was leaving the office, he said, "Goodbye, Don. Have a nice night." I said, "Goodbye, Colonel Morad."
When you finished that tour of duty, you came back to the United States.
When I came back to the United States and came back to Forbes and stayed a little while and then was discharged.
And you were discharged when?
I was discharged in March of 1956.
What did you do? Is that when you came back to Mobile?
Yeah, when I got out, and I mentioned the fact that he called, and I were very close, and he kept up with me. And I'd like to tell you a case that caused me to really want to be a lawyer and always wanted to be associated with Carl. But back in 1946, when I would soon be a senior in law school, I saw Carl try a woman for killing her crippled son. And the circumstances were like this, Mitch. In August of 1945, divorce was over. but we still had a terrific population in Mobile. And the fact of the matter is, and you've seen the movie, the television shows about how crowded Mobile was then. When war started in 1942, Mobile had less than 60,000 people. When the war came on and all the industry and everything that came here in Mobile, we had 250,000 people here crowded into Mobile. And the joke was, there were so many people in Mobile that there were no mosquitoes because they didn't have enough room for them. People took up all the room. That was a joke, but it was, well, some people can tell it a whole lot better than I can, but that was a big joke. Well, anyhow, on Cedar Street, which is in downtown Mobile, lived a woman and her crippled child. And so anyhow, the mother had found out that her soldier husband was coming back within a month, and she was not real excited about it. But the boy, the crippled boy, was real excited about his stepdaddy coming back, and because stepdaddy had always been nice to her. The mama wasn't anxious about it because she had boyfriends, and she didn't want to give up her boyfriends, and so she was somewhat bit about it. And so they lived in this rooming house on Cedar Street, and it was crowded to the hill. Just everybody crowded in there, and there's no secrets. Everybody knew everything anybody else had said. Well, anyhow, some of the mother's neighbors had heard her and the boy arguing about her daddy coming back, and the crippled boy told his mother that when daddy comes back, I'm going to tell her about your boyfriend, and tell him about your boyfriend. And she was allegedly said, well, you won't do that because you'll be dead first. So anyhow, the neighbors saw the mother dealing with a debit insurance man. She saw him, whenever the debit insurance man came, she'd always have a conversation with him and gave him money and everything. So the mother claims that she walked into the door to the bedroom and she saw the boy with a single barrel 20-day shotgun with his toe engaged into the trigger housing and with the muzzle in the boy's mouth. And she tried to stop him, but the boy pulled the trigger with his toe. All right, they called the police. The police came there and knew something was wrong because the shotgun lay parallel with the body, right there where she claims it would. And so the police came, they knew there was something fishy about it, so they called a detective, and the detective came over, and he knew there was something fishy about it. And so anyhow, they had a toxicologist come, and the toxicologist took the shotgun with him back to his office and fired it a number of times, and each time he fired it, the shotgun recoiled. It goes 3 or 4 feet. And the toxicologist was able to say that it's impossible. It's impossible for that gun to have rested like where it was shot. It would have, when he was instantly killed, the guy would go, which brings you back to the county commissioner supposed to kill his girlfriend. The gun was on the ground. She shot herself and immediately it falls. Which I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent, but I know that when you shoot yourself a fatal shot, you lose the gun. So anyhow, Carl got the man indicted and got the witnesses to testify about you're not going to tell your daddy anything because you're going to be dead first, and then tell him about her dealing with the insurance man. So Carl subpoenaed the insurance man and found out she'd taken out 3 policies of insurance on him 3 weeks before the crippled man was killed. So Carl presented the testimony of the witnesses there, plus the debit attorney, the debit collector came in and brought certificates where she purchased those 3 policies, and they found the woman guilty and sentenced her to die in the electric chair, and she died in the electric chair in 1948. I witnessed the whole trial. She died in the electric chair in 1948. Of course, I didn't witness the execution, but she died, and she was the last woman in Mobile County to be electrocuted. And then while I was at the university, Carl convicted a phantom rapist who had broken into homes in South Mobile County and phantom, as a phantom. You know, you just look up and there's a rapist right before you. And he convicted him and he died. So the last two people that died in Mobile County in the electric chair.
And when you came in '56,
Okay.
did you open your private office and also work for the district
Yeah,
attorney?
I wrote my-
In other words, you came back to Mobile after you were discharged.
Came back to Mobile.
All right, so tell us, you opened an office and
An
you,
office in the Van Antwerp building.
Okay.
And Elizabeth, my wife, 59 years, almost 60 years, was my secretary. And then Paul gave me a job in the district attorney's office, and I went to work.
and your job as assistant was a part-time
What they
job.
call assistant solicitor, but it's a DA. I use those words interchangeably. They put me in Judge Tuart's court, which was called the Court of General Sessions, which is now called the District Court. And I'm going to tell you about Judge Tuart. He was something else. He had a son, Mansfield Wright. You probably remember Mansfield. Mansfield Wright was his court clerk. That was his son-in-law. And Judge Tuart in Mansfield treated the ladies, and I had a couple of men, but there were about 7, 8 ladies in there. He treated them just like they were his children. And when I came down there as an assistant district attorney, both of them treated me the same way. And Judge Tuart, one thing I'll always be grateful for, he taught me how to examine a witness. He was a very talented man. He knew Shakespeare, he knew the Bible, he knew criminal evidence, he knew a lot of things. And he was an actor too. And so he treated me real nice. He taught me how to examine a witness. He said, if you ask a leading question, your opponent's going to object, and your objection's going to be sustained, and you're going to be sitting there with your mouth open, not knowing what to say next. So this is the way you examine a witness. It says, did you have an occasion to be at a certain place at a certain time? So yeah. What, if anything, did you see, hear, or observe? That's the easiest question in the world to ask, and it'll get you past every time. After having observed that, what, if any, impression did you acquire? If any. I always ask for that. And he was just as nice as he could be to me. But he gave Harry Seals gave him all kinds of fit. One big reason, I figured out now, one big reason they were so much alike. Both of them were actors. Both of them knew the Bible and knew Shakespeare. And they were so much alike they couldn't get along. And I was in Judge Tuart's court. I was trying a case in Judge Tuart's court.
Now you prosecuted in his court for what span of time?
2 years.
Then after 2 years, you started trying him in circuit court?
Yeah, went to circuit court. But let me tell you, because I like to hear it myself.
Okay.
Harry Seal would come in there, robust and everything. And Harry Seal was trying a case, and another thing about Judge Tuart, he made certain that when you came into his courtroom, regardless of your previous circumstances, regardless of the statute of life, you got respect and treated nice. And Harry Seal was questioning one witness and said, "Were you lying then, or are you lying now?" Mr. Seal, why do you have to use that word? Why can't you say, "Are you telling the truth now?" Was that an untruth? Why do you have to say that? Please don't say that anymore. And so the trial went on for a little while, and then Harry said, "Are you lying?" Mr. Bernstein, he's your prisoner. He's your prisoner. And his bailiff, Mr. Bernstein, had him sit right next to him. And Harry sat there, but not saying anything for about a half an hour. And then all of a sudden, John Mandel, the clerk of the court, or bailiff, came down and would tell Mr. Bernstein, "I have oral orders from the circuit court to present Mr. Seal before the circuit court." And Mr. Seal would walk out with whomsoever came to quiet. And they went upstairs, and everybody upstairs on the second floor got a big laugh out of what happened. I was in there one time.
Now, I assume they discharged Mr. Seal, is that right?
That was the end of it. That was the end. Oh yeah, Mr. Seal had a black bit of habeas corpus in his pocket at all times. Not just for Judge Tuart, but for any judge, federal judges and everything. He got in trouble with everybody, but he was a great actor and a great guy and a great friend and just absolutely great. All right, well listen,
Yeah, let's get back to your career as assistant district.
If you don't mind, I'd like to hear this story.
All right.
That Jerry Austin Sr., I mean the great-great-grandson of the canoe fighter. You all know about the canoe fighter. The great-grandson of the canoe fighter was charged with having 2 birds over the limit, two morning doves over the limit, and the game warden caught him and charged him with having in possession, killing or taking or having in possession over the limit game birds. And so anyhow, Mr. Austin came up defending himself, and he told the judge, he said, I killed 8 birds, which is the limit, but while I was killing those 8 birds, a friend of mine had only killed 2, and it was real hot. And my friend said, Jerry, take my birds with you, and I'm going to watch a ball game. And he left. And Jerry said he forgot he had those 2 birds. He put them in a stew that was insulated where you could put your drinks and stuff like that. And when the game warden came up, Jerry Austin Sr. was sitting on his dove stew in the shade. And the game warden asked him, said, how many birds do you have? And he counted 8. And he said, what's in the stew? And he said, I don't know. And so the student found other 2. So anyhow, Judge Tuart said, Jerry, come here just a minute. Brutkiewicz, come up here just a minute. And Judge Tuart said, Jerry, I've been in a field with you many times, and you're first to kill your limit, and when you do, you walk out. And I know that you're a good hunter and a good sport and everything, but I've got to find you guilty because I just convicted 2 young boys last week, and they paid a fine, and I know they went without lunch for paying that fine. He said, I'm going to find you guilty and fine you $50. Jerry took out he took the $50 and took it up the man's desk, slapped it down on the desk. And he said, the judge Tuart said, and $21.25 court cost. Jerry reached into his pocket and came out with some money and put $22 up there and said, keep the change. Judge Tuart said, and 30 days in jail. Let me see you pay that. And so Jerry Austin, 80-year-old Jerry Austin was sat over there next to Judge Bernstein, and pretty soon John Mandeville or clerk or the bailiff came down there and took Jerry Austin up to circuit court. All right, I was in the district court had a civil division.
Now I assume circuit court he was discharged.
That was the end of it, end of the story. And so Jimmy Strickland and Al Seal were trying a civil case. They defended.
Well, about what year we're talking about?
With 2 years I was in district court, we were 56 to 58.
Okay.
And then in 58, they closed the courthouse. We were in the 1905 courthouse up until 1958. Then they put us out of the courthouse. Judge Tuart held court down on Theater Street in a taxi cab location where the taxi cab would pass that building. We tried the district court, General Sessions Court in that building.
Okay, now let me ask you this. When you finished the 2 years in general, you then proceeded to try cases in circuit court, did you not? For what? Yeah, how many years? How many years did you try in circuit court? Because you were there a long time.
14 years. I was there 14 years.
14 years in circuit court as assistant?
Let me tell you about Jimmy Strickland. I'll go
Okay.
back. But Jimmy Strickland and Al Seal were trying to vindicate. And Judge Tuart told Jimmy Strickland, don't ask that question again. You've asked that question over and over again. You don't have a jury here. I'm going to try the case this way. And Jimmy asked the question just exactly the same way before. And Judge Tuart said, Mr. Bernstein, put him in jail. And I don't mean sitting down next to you. Put him in jail. And they took Jimmy Strickland through the corridor back there and put him in what they called a vault, a place where the prisoner stayed. and the prisoner stayed there with a bucket, and whenever the prisoner got convicted of something, they throw that bucket over. And so anyhow, they locked him up there. Jimmy Strickland got locked up in the vault, stayed locked up in the vault for about 30 minutes or more. And then Al Sears came back. I was in the courtroom. I was in the courtroom when they took him off, and I was in the courtroom when Al Sears came back and said, "Judge, please let Jimmy Strickland go. It stinks back there, Judge. So does his conduct." But they did let him go, and that was the end of that. Nothing else.
And we need to, I want Mr. Brutkiewicz to tell us
About Elizabeth?
about Elizabeth when y'all were in law school, where she worked.
Yeah, when I was in law school, but when I was in law school, and Elizabeth came to the University of Alabama as an 18-year-old education department. Elizabeth's dad died when she was 13 years old, and she was just entering fall high school, and her brothers and sisters had to drop out of school to go to work to support the family. But Elizabeth insisted she go through high school, and so she would arrive at school a little bit before everybody else and go to the principal's office, and she would ascertain from the principal and from the other class who was going to lunch that day. And then when the first bell rang, it'd be about 5 or 10 minutes between the first bell and the class. She'd go around and collect the money for the lunch money. And then when she got off work that afternoon in school, she got off work, she would go to the superintendent of education, Barber County Superintendent of Education office, and she worked as a stenographer in that office until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. When she got off at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, she'd go to one of the big houses on Eufaula Street, and there a lady who represented the League of College Women, something along that line, the League of Professional Women or something, and she takes dictation and type when she get home around 6 o'clock. On Saturdays, she worked at the 5 and Dime. Saturday night, she sold tickets in the theater. Sunday, she went to church, and she went through that. And she and Gorman Houston, you know, the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court, were classmates. And when they graduated, Gorman was president of the 1951 class, and Elizabeth was valedictorian. So anyhow, she came to the university, and we started dating. She worked at the co-op house, which meant she worked over there. She got up rent free. She would wash the dishes and do maid work over there. She got that free. And in the afternoon, she worked for, I call her Dr. Proper, but her name was something else, but I remember it Dr. Proper because she was a maid lady and she was very, very proper. And so anyhow, she worked at Dr. Proper's office. Dr. Proper was director of the secondary education school at the university. So she worked there, and then she worked there until May. Let's say it's about May the 27th of 1951. She was 19 years old, and school was out. But Elizabeth stayed up there because she had to work for Dr. Proper. And I stayed up there to be able to see Elizabeth. And so on about the 28th of May 1951, I told Elizabeth, I said, you know, Elizabeth will never be as close as we are now. She said, oh yes, we can. I said, well, you're going to Eufaula and I got to go to RTC someday. Oh yes, but we can see each other. You can come to Eufaula and I come to Mobile. I said, Elizabeth, that ain't good enough. Let's go to Mississippi and get married. I can't do that. Well, you're not going to do that? So finally I had to talk to her to do that. So the next day, I rented a U-Driver. You know what that is? I rented a Push It, yeah, which is U-Driver. And I went and got Elizabeth, and we were going to Mississippi. She said, no, I got to go see Dr. Proper. So I took her to Dr. Proper's office around 9 o'clock. Dr. Proper didn't come in about 11, so Elizabeth did some work and everything. When Dr. Proper came in, she told Dr. Proper that she was going to go to Mississippi and get married. You can't go to Mississippi and get married. I'm going to put him in jail. And she did say, you can't put him in jail. I'm 19 years old and I'm going to say, no, you're not, no, you're not. But she stayed around there for a while, and finally around 3 o'clock we went to Mississippi and got married. And came back, and I went to ROTC summer camp at Elizabeth State in Mobile, and she worked as a secretary for Metzger's during the summer. And by the way, she worked for Hand and Aerodol one time when I was either in the service or something as a secretary. But anyhow, she worked at the Metzger's as a secretary, and we went back to school. Dr. Proper and the superintendent of education in Barber County was a contemporary. Let me see if I can tell you right. No, they were friends of Lameda Clement and Ewing. Lameda Clement and Ewing. And they got Elizabeth a job at Lameda Clement and Ewing. And while she was working there, and Terry Hubbard was there and Gordon Rose was there, just about all 5 of them taught at the University of Alabama. Lameda taught trial and future interest, and Terry Hubbard taught appellate practice, trial and appeal. And all of those lawyers permitted Elizabeth to keep a copy of everything she did. And for me, when I got out of law school, and when she came to work for me, I had some of the most beautiful approaches to the appellate courts, and I had some of the most beautiful wills and deeds and everything, all of it composed by the lawyers of the Lameda Clement Ewing firm. Well,
While we're talking about, tell us about your children. Let's while we're in family. Let's tell us a little bit about your family, and then when I want to go back and pick up again about your legal career.
But I'm listening before. I've got to tell about Robert Cunningham. Going to jail. You don't want to hear about Robert Cunningham going to jail, president of the bar. Don't let me forget that.
We come. I thought while we were on family, tell us about your family, and then we're gonna come back and pick up your legal career.
This was I stayed married for 59 years and 51 weeks, and we had 5 children, 5 daughter-in-laws. All of my children went to college. All of my daughter-in-laws went to college. We had 10 grandchildren. And when she died, we had 4 great-grandchildren, and since she died, we got 2 more great-grandchildren. And anyhow, that all came from my 59 years and 51 weeks.
Now you have children who are attorneys. Tell us.
I got 2 of them, two children that are attorneys, and I've got a stepson-in-law as an attorney that works over there. Joe Dennis. Joe Dennis is the son of Johnny's girlfriend, who's a dentist, and Johnny's girlfriend was married to a plastic surgeon, Dr. Dennis, and Dr. Dennis recently handled a wound clinic on St. Springfield Avenue, right across from the Mobile Infirmary. Well, anyhow, Johnny's girlfriend and Dr. Dennis have been divorced for many years, but they're good friends. Johnny's a good friend of Dr. Dennis, and so their son Joe works in our office there. And before he went to work for us, he was a stenographer for us, but he practiced law in there. And I called him my step-grandson. He's Johnny's girlfriend's son. We're all real close.
All right, your 2 sons who are attorneys, did they go to Alabama? Did they go to Alabama? Or did they go somewhere else?
My 2 sons went all
and tell us something about your 2 sons who are practicing law.
2 sons that practiced law, Johnny and Skippy. Skippy's been practicing about 35 years, and Johnny's been practicing 30 years. And Skippy actually Skippy owns the building we're in. Skippy bought that building. At one time, back when you and I got out of law school, that building on 56th and 7th Street was a boarding house, a rooming house, all breaking down. And Richard Pate, you know Richard Pate. Richard Pate's daddy was the chairman of the Association of Building Contractors, and Richard was born with a hammer in his hand. And Richard got money from the federal government to fix dilapidated buildings like 56 Government Street. And if you walk in my building, you see all that work in there. Richard did it himself. All the cabinets and doors and everything, Richard himself did it. And he built the building we in up, and then decided he didn't want to practice law anymore. He wanted to get over the ball and training.
Currently, you're associated with your two sons who are lawyers in the practice of law. Is that correct?
Well, we have our own deal. They let me stay in there, and Johnny and Joe, Johnny and his stepson, Joe, we call him the stepson, they kind of cooperate with each other. And Skippy sometimes cooperates with Joseph too, because Joseph worked for us as a stenographer for many years. But they let me stay there, and they don't charge me any rent, and I don't have to pay any expenses, but I was just telling them I have to pay my bar dues and stuff like that. They make me do that and pay my insurance thing. So that's all it cost me, so I can come down and sit there and don't do anything. But I'm enjoying life, I guess. I guess I am.
You got one son that's a physician, don't you?
Well, I got one son that's a physician, and he went to university. He went to University of the South, and then went to the University of Sussex. Carl went to Swanee and took literature, and then he went to the University of Sussex and took a famous author. And went through him and traveled around, and then decided he wanted to go to medical school, so he came to South Alabama Medical School. And he practiced in general practice out there. And then I got one son that works in the Jimmy Strickland Center. He's a probation officer. So I got two sons of a lawyer, one's a doctor, one's a probation officer, and Billy's a gentleman.
Okay, let's go back to your legal career now. You, after 2 years before Judge Tewart, you went into circuit court.
Well, I forget it. I'll do that, but let me talk about Robert Cunningham.
Okay.
I mentioned Gorman Houston. Gorman Houston and Elizabeth graduated in the class of 51, and Gorman was president of the class. Elizabeth was a valedictorian. And in 30 years after Elizabeth graduated, they had a 30-year anniversary of the class of 51 to meet at the Eufaula Hotel. And so anyhow, Elizabeth and I went up to the Eufaula Hotel one night, and Gorman saw Elizabeth. Gorman ran up, Elizabeth, darling, I can't believe that you're here. I can't believe it. I'm seeing you. I'm talking to you. And then they separated from all the hugging and kissing, and they stood there with their hands out, with their fingers in fold, and said, Elizabeth, darling, I've got to tell you this. I've got to tell you this. And I'm so proud you're here, because I'm going to tell you. I went out to the country club this afternoon, and I addressed the Barber County Teachers Association. And there was old teachers and new teachers. And darling, there was 6 of our high school teachers there. And they were not, the high school teachers were nice enough to listen to what I had to say without interrupting me and let me get through it. And when we got through, we walked out to the garden, and they gathered around and said, well, now, Gorman, tell me about the anniversary party. And I said, I told them about it, and they said, who's coming? And so I started reciting names, and when I did, they all brightened up and said they remember him, and so-and-so, and they have fond memories of him. And then they mentioned another name, and they finally came and said, what about Elizabeth Cook? And Gorman said, well, I don't know whether she's coming or not. We sent her an invitation, but I hadn't heard from Elizabeth in 30 years. And I understand she got married early, and I don't know what happened to her. So he said, now I'm talking to you. And said, when I left those fine teachers, and I walked away, one of them yelled, Gorman, we want to tell you that we think that you were the best boy we ever taught, but Elizabeth was the best student. and the teacher said that they were really impressed with you. Said she was serious and productive. So anyhow, that's the story about, Gorman was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So anyhow, getting back to, I've got to tell you this about Robert Cunningham. Robert Cunningham was representing the wife of a very rich, influential, affluent man in the circuit court civil, and because of the money, reputation, affluence, and everything, the judge that was handling the trial locked the doors. Nobody could come in. Nobody could listen to the testimony. And lots of me and a bunch of other lawyers and newspaper people and television people all were trying to look in and see what was going on. And the judge would chase him away, get a bailiff or something, call the clerk's office, get him away from here. So anyhow, the judge arrived at a decision.
What year are we talking about?
We're talking about probably 19. When was Robert president of the bar? 1966. Well, then Robert either was president of the bar or was just served as president of the bar. Whether it was commensurate.
This was the middle 60s, 1960s.
Either then or commensurate with that year, he was president of the Bar Association. And so anyhow, when the judge opened the doors and announced that he was going to render the verdict, they let the lawyers in, they let the newspaper people in, the paper people, no cameras. So the judge read his decision, and the decision was very favorable to the husband. And so when Robert heard the decision, he said, Judge, you paid little attention to all of the good evidence that the wife had presented, and said, actually, what your decision is a toadying to the rich and famous, for the affluent, politically and otherwise. And the judge had sitting there said, take him to jail. And the bailiffs escorted Robert out the front door of the courthouse. Out the front door of the courtroom. And when they were out there, they had moving cameras. Everybody taking pictures of him. The cameras followed him down the stairs, followed him into the basement, followed him into the jail, and saw him taking his things out of his pocket and everything else. And the afternoon paper said, President of the Mobile Bar Association in jail. Had his picture. They had a still camera, had his picture on the front page. Somehow or another, Robert never came up for any sentence and everything. But Robert practiced law for another 30 or 40 years or more, and he never spoke to or had anything to do with that particular circuit judge. And they had both graduated from Murphy High School before the war, had graduated together and were real close, and had participated in all kinds of activities together. And one of them was, like Elizabeth and Gorman, one of them was president of the senior class, and the other one was valedictorian.
Did Robert Cunningham stay in jail, or did he get released?
I'm sure he got released. I'm sure that one of the circuit judges had sent him bailiff down there and brought him up to the courtroom, and they didn't laugh. I'm telling you, they didn't laugh at this one. They laughed at Harry, but they didn't laugh at Robert. So he never went into jail cell.
Okay, he got booked, but did not actually go to jail. As far as you know.
This is what I heard. As soon as the sheriff found out that Robert was in the docket room, I'm sure this is true. As soon as the sheriff found out that Robert was in the docket room, the sheriff personally came down and escorted him to his office. And Robert sat in the sheriff's office until such time as Judge Grayson or somebody, whosoever signed sent word over. I don't think they sent letters over. They don't send papers over. They just sent word over, let him come, let him go. That's the end of it. But Robert never spoke to that individual from that point on. And when Robert, after a very successful career in practice law, retired and became ex officio judge of the Circuit Court of Mobile County without pay. You knew Robert served without pay.
Yeah, I recall. I didn't know he served without pay. I recall when he served.
He served without pay. He volunteered his service to the Circuit Court as an ex officio judge, and he tried Criminal cases? I tried criminal cases before Robert. He was a damn good judge. He tried criminal cases, he tried civil cases, he tried everything but domestic relations cases. I don't believe those two ever made up.
Who was the circuit judge?
I don't remember. I do remember, but I'm not going to tell you.
But all right, let's get back to your career, Don, and tell us a little bit. You continued as an assistant district attorney and tried, and you were prosecuting cases before juries.
Prosecuting cases in certain courts.
What span of time did you serve as a assistant district attorney in the circuit court after you served?
About 12 years.
From about when till when?
From about 1968 until the years 1970. But anyhow, let me tell you about me and Judge Bolden.
This was after you became prosecuting in the circuit court we're talking about now.
When I was prosecuting in circuit court, let me tell you the circumstance. When I was prosecuting in circuit court, Carl had throat cancer and he started losing his voice, and he got me to start trying all of the principal murder cases. Carl had to go to Boston to get his throat operated on him, and he met with the presiding judge, and the presiding judge agreed that it was May the 10th when I went to jail, May the 10th. Carl arranged for the circuit court to not try any jury case, any criminal jury cases, but just perfunctory cases like arraignments and stuff like that. And so I came down on May the 10th, and I was in Judge.
May 10th of what year we talking
I
about?
can't remember. Now, I can tell you, I got the decision down here. Supreme Court against Donald Brutkiewicz.
Now, this was an occasion that you had a run-in with the judge. Is that what?
Judge Bolden. Hold on just a minute. Anyhow, it was May the 10th of whatever year it was. I think it's probably about 1966 or something like that.
That's close enough. Let's go.
Right. So anyhow, I was in a visiting judge's courtroom and was finishing up on some perfunctory little things. And so Judge Bolden, Bailey came to see me and said, Judge Bolden has finished his civil docket, and he's beginning his criminal docket, and said, we're looking for Jimmy Strickland or Tom Galloway, and we can't find him anywhere in the courthouse. Can you come down there and help with Judge Bolden's criminal docket? And I said, yes, I can. It'll be in 5 minutes. We're finishing up here. Well, anyhow, we did finish up, but the visiting judge, I know his name real well, and his son and I were friends, but it's from Washington County. Judge, Perry, the judge, he had stepped off the bench and was down by his clerk's chair, and he was telling us a story about what happened 30 years ago up in Washington County. And so I had to listen in. I couldn't walk away. So when I got down to Judge Bolden's courtroom, Judge Bolden wasn't there. And I said, where is Judge Bolden? He said, well, he's going to lunch. And I said, well, what happened to the case down there? He said, we sent it back to the city court. You didn't show up. We sent it back. I said, that SOB couldn't wait 5 minutes for me. And his bailiff was in the courtroom, and his clerk was in the courtroom, and some lawyers was in the courtroom. And said, the bailiff said, who called my judge an SOB? I said, who called that SOB a judge? And so the next thing I know, I'm in jail. The judge wasn't there.
Who ordered you to go to jail?
Judge Bolden. And so anyhow, I got papers to go to jail. And so anyhow, Harry Seal represented me. Were you booked? No, I wasn't booked. I didn't even sit in the sheriff's office. They had a hearing before Judge Bolden.
Before you went to jail?
Well,
after he ordered
I
you?
never did go to jail. I said I went to jail, but I never did go to jail.
All right.
But anyhow, I did have to go to the clerk's office. I went to the clerk's office and I signed an appeal bond, and I got my good friend Paul Thompson. Y'all know Paul Thompson. I got my good friend named Paul Thompson. I got Greg. I got a furniture man to sign my appeal bond, and I reported to Judge Boland's case next 2 or 3 days, and Harry Seal represented me. And so the judge heard from the bailiff that I called him a SOB, and he found me guilty and fined me $50 and 30 minutes in jail. And so anyhow, 30 minutes in jail. So Harry took an appeal to the Supreme Court, and I've got it here someplace. It's Brutkiewicz versus State. The Supreme Court said that contempt is not to salvage the famed senses of a judge. In order to be guilty of contempt, you have to interrupt some court proceeding and something more than just things said. I wish I could find it right here. I'd like to, before I leave, get it's interesting reading for anybody that gets excited in court like Harry Seal and I. They need to read Brutkiewicz versus State, and it's October the 20th, 1966, and the citation is.
The effect of the decision is that you were discharged?
Yeah, and it says that
Because it did not occur, your comments did not occur during a trial or proceeding.
In other words, you can walk outside the courtroom and stand on the street corner and cuss judges all you want to, unless the judges cannot put you in jail to soothe your wounded sensibilities. That's what it said. And now let me go back. Let me please, right now, since we mentioned his name, let's go back and talk about Judge Boland. I feel real disappointed to say anything bad about Judge Boland because, you know, he was one of the great war heroes of World War II. Judge Boland was we talk about Mustangs. Judge Boland flew a Mustang in the 8th Air Force. I can say 8th Air Force, but anyhow, the Air Force that bombed the German oil fields, Podolsky. He flew a Mustang fighter and went over the Podolsky oil fields many times in it. And on one occasion, when he went over there, he was coming back. They were stationed in Italy, and coming back from the Podolsky field, a German ace destroyed his automobile. I mean, his airplane. And when it destroyed his airplane, he had a seat that went up in the air, and they drove him up into the air, and he went a good while, and then his parachute opened. And when his parachute opened, he saw the German ace and the German ace's airplane come within 4 feet of him. And Judge Boland was so close to this German ace that he could tell the color of his eyes and could tell everything about it. And so the German ace turned around and came back. And Judge Boland said, well, I'm gone. He's going to come back and straighten me. The German ace came back close to him and saluted him and went on. Well, anyhow, Judge Boland was rescued by Tito's partisans in Yugoslavia. When he hit the ground, the partisans were there and they rescued him, and there were some other aviators they rescued. And he stayed with Tito and his partisans for about a month. And on one occasion, he ate right next to Tito, the head of the partisans, who later on became president of Yugoslavia, of Czechoslovakia, became president of Czechoslovakia. And finally,
I think Yugoslavia was correct.
Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
He became president of Yugoslavia. And the partisans smuggled Bill and some other Americans into Italy, and they met up with the Allied forces. and they brought the bill back to the United States. So anyhow, this decision that I hope somebody reads, that it said that, let me give you the decision. It read it October the 20th, 1966. All right, it's 191 Southern 2nd, 222.
That's a good decision for all lawyers to be aware of, right?
Take that.
Let's move on with your legal.
But anyhow, let me just throw this about Judge Borden. He never mentioned it. Never mentioned it. He stayed on the bench for another 20 or 30 years, and I tried lots of cases in front of him. In fact, one of the cases, one of the important cases that I brought here, was a Willie Seals case. He tried that thing. He tried that thing and stayed tied up with it for 2 or 3 years. Judge Bowling and I got along great. After this, he never mentioned it. I never mentioned anything else. We got to be good friends. But I never, something about Judge Bowling, I never saw him smile. I never saw him laugh. And when we were talking about judges retiring after they reached age 70, he didn't reach age 70, but in about 19, because I defended criminal cases in front of Judge Borden. In about 1976, something like that, his term was up, and he walked out of the courthouse. People wanted to give him a going-away party. They wanted to see. He walked out of that courthouse in 1976 and never came back. Never. And Judge Borden had a habit of parking his car out by Wanaka's and walking to town. When he retired, he'd walk to town, and I'd see him around the First National Bank together, and we'd get together and talk. He never smiled, he never laughed, but he'd talk about what's going on in the court. How's Joe Hocklander doing? How's Jimmy Strickland doing? How's so and so? But he never smiled, never laughed. And I'll say this, and I'll take over this. He and I died close friends. And what irritates me, they said I didn't think Big Highlight. I do. I still remember Judge Borden. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and I pine for him, to be frank with you. Well, anyhow.
Let's get back. In addition to being assistant district attorney, you also had a private practice.
Had a private practice.
Tell us about your private practice, the nature of it.
All right, you may remember this when I was president of the Young Democrats, and we used to meet in the 1905 courthouse on the second floor. Marlon and you and all of us used to go up there, and we'd have all the big speakers. Well, Marlon and John Tyson, and maybe you, I'm not sure, got together with Sam Pipes, who was president of the bar some time back. We got together with Sam Pipes, who was a good friend of Lister Hill, Senator Lister Hill. And we got with Lister Hill, asked Sam to get in touch with Lister Hill and asked him if he could get a person of national renown to come speak to the Young Democrats in the Battle House Hotel. And Senator Hill got Senator Robert Kerr McGee, all comes from Oklahoma, who was a renowned Democrat. In fact, he was talked about being Vice President of the United States, a nominee for Vice President of the United States. We got him to come down to the Battle House to speak. But before he came, Senator Hill sent some of his staff members and Senator Kerr sent some of his advanced people over to Sam Pipes' office, and Sam Pipes and the Senator Hill's staff and Senator Kerr's advanced staff wrote up an introduction for me to give before Senator Kerr spoke. And I gave that introduction at the Battle House Hotel crowd. We raised a lot of money in the crowd and everything else. And after that introduction, Scotty Alston, who represented the business agent for the building trades, came up to me and said that was the best introduction I've ever heard, Brutkiewicz. Congratulations, you really gave a good introduction. And then about 6 months later, the attorney for the building trades was Bill Taylor. You remember Bill Taylor? Bill Taylor, he was sworn in as circuit judge, and I was in the courtroom when Bill Taylor was sworn in. And Scotty came over to me and said, Brutkiewicz, do you want to start representing the building trades? And I said, yes. He said, well, Brutkiewicz, go to the library and study the Wagner Act, the Land of Griffith Act, and the Taft-Hartley Act. And you'll receive a check in the mail every month, you see this check, and you get a copy of the BNA with labor. I said, study it, and you're going to represent the building trades wherever they are. And I did, made a good amount of money and got up a lot of clients.
Now you represented the building trades over a span of time?
Unions, huh?
Over what period of time?
Until Scotty died, and then when Scotty died.
But what I'm saying, this was a big part of your practice for a while.
Oh yeah. I went to federal court. I went to federal court in the Fifth Circuit, and I would go up to I would go up to North Alabama. I told them about going up to North Alabama. And
what time frame are we talking about?
This from about 1958 until, let's see if I'm telling it right, 1958 until about Scotty died. And I say Scotty died in 1995, so right close.
Okay, this is a long time representation.
Long time represented the building trades,
and you had a lot of litigation you handled.
A lot of litigation, and then when I had two retainers, and Leo Crane came in to help me practice. And Leo Crane, now listen to this, Leo Crane used to contract for and buy mortgages. And Leo, D.R. Coley did that. D.R. Coley was 1941 president of the Bar Association. No telling how much money Leo that he and his nephew made buying mortgages. You could have complete title to your home. You could have inherited your home and been in your family for 100 years, and you couldn't get a loan from the bank. They would not lend you money unless you could prove that you didn't need it. And D.R. Coley and Bill Delaney and Leo Crane bought a lot of mortgages. Now, D.R. Coley made a fortune, complete absolute fortune, but most of the houses that were built from the Mississippi line to Florida Street. Florida Street in 1946 was the end of the city of Mobile. The rest of it was Mobile County or Mobile Police Jurisdiction, but they couldn't borrow money to build houses. D.R. Coley put up the money. I couldn't estimate how much D.R. Coley had died when he died. Had it up with Bill Delaney. And Leo Crane comes to my office all the time to file the parks. Leo was 88 years old, but his wife's about 40 years younger than him. And she'll carry him over to the courthouse, and they'll file paperwork over the courthouse. And I told him I was gonna be here today, and said, Leo, I'm gonna mention you. He said, don't tell him how much money I got.
Let me ask you one other. During the span of time that you practiced, beginning, you started after you got out of the service, which was about 1956. When you were trying cases before juries back in the 50s and 60s, what was the composition of the juries? Men, women?
Oh no, they were
black, white?
They were, yeah.
Tell us what the composition of juries was back in the 50s and 60s, and when it changed.
All right, back when I
Let's talk about juries a little bit.
Talk about juries a little bit. I'm going to tell about the if you really want to know about juries, you need to read the Willie Seals case, tried by Judge Bolden. Willie Seals case tried. It's 213 Southern 2nd 645.
What year?
The decision was 1968. Willie Seals. Willie Seals. There was a beautiful young lady. A beautiful young lady was driving a car down Mobile Street, and just shortly before you enter 45, which would be Pritchard, and she had a motor trouble, and Willie Seals came up to her put his hands on the car and asked if he could help her. And she said, well, I need somebody to push me to the filling station. Well, Willie Seals grabbed hold of that woman and pulled her out of the car and raped her. And she fought him, and he raped her. And after he raped her, he took her into an outhouse. And just before he left the outhouse, it was on the left-hand side of Mobile Street, just before he got into prison. And he left her in the outhouse, but before he left, he grabbed her by the throat and bam! Hit her in the face and knocked her out. And she stayed there until somebody discovered her. And they sent the ambulance over to get her. And the ambulance came to get her. And the ambulance driver knew her because she was an attractive girl and she was in high school, she was important. And they took her to the hospital. And when she got in the hospital, they took a picture of her face. It was black and blue and everything. And so anyhow, because she had scratched and bit and everything else, the assailant, they somehow or another got hold of the assailant and arrested the assailant. Willie Seals, they arrested him. And I tried it and I tried to put a preliminary trial in the British Recorder's Court, and when it came to the circuit court before Judge Boland, I tried the case, but there was all kinds of entering between the two. All right, the writs of error quorum nobis in Circuit Court of Mobile County, and there was all kinds of legal proceedings about it, about the composition of the jury, the fact that the blacks were systematically excluded from the service on the jury. And Judge Boland, poor soul, had to listen to all that. And they listened to it prior to trial. Judge Boland listened to it for, I don't know, I'd say 6 months. And he very cordial, very nice and everything. But I didn't take part in the arguments about that. I got me to try the case. I mean, present it to a jury. But the preliminaries to the trial called and the Attorney General of Alabama and his staff represented the state of Alabama in regard to Willie Seals. And so anyhow, the case went from Mobile up to the circuit court, up to the Supreme Court, and after they came to the Supreme Court, after the appellate courts, after the appellate courts had the case. So in other words, Willie Seals stayed in court for a long time, and poor Judge Boland stayed with him. But in the trial itself, it's real easy. All I did was put the woman on the stand, and she identified Willie Seals as a singer, told about how she was hit in the face by Willie Seals, and then I was able to introduce photographs that they took at the hospital of the face, and then I had introduced fingerprints on the automobile that she was in, and they convicted him in the circuit court and gave him the electric chair. And when he went to the electric chair, he didn't go to the electric chair. So after that, he went to the Fifth Circuit, the Supreme Court of the United States. The Willie Seals case went before the Supreme Court of the United States, and the Supreme Court of the United States threw out the systematic exclusion of blacks on the jury. And Boland, I think they tried Willie Seals again, and I didn't because I'd left office. But Braddock, somebody had tried Willie Seals again, and I think they convicted him and gave him a life sentence, and they appealed that. So Willie Seals stayed in jail for about 10 years through appellate practice and all that kind of stuff. And after 10 years, I don't know what happened to it. Either they compromised.
This is a case, though, that ended just whites only on juries.
Whites only on the jury.
That was what year?
The case was tried and it went to the Supreme Court in our Supreme Court in 1968. But it stayed in either the United States Supreme Court or in the appellate court for 10 years anyhow. Willie served 10 years. And when he got out, he was a cause select. Willie Seals was a cause select when he got out. And now whether if he got convicted, I'm reasonably sure he got his restoration of his civil and political liberty because he became a politician, he became a clergyman, he became a civic leader. Willie Seals was #1.
Okay. Also, besides there not being blacks, there were also no women on the jury.
Well, that was not reversed by anything. It's just,
No, but that was also the case in the early years, was it
yeah,
not?
but Johnny's got a picture of me and let me see what his name was. Me and a defense attorney trying a case right after women got on the jury. And Judge Mayhall was the judge, and he picked it, and we all agreed that we tried a case completely with women jurors, and we did. And many years later, I represented a young man that mother-in-law was on that jury, and that young man brought me a picture of Judge Mayhall, and I forget the lawyer's name, but he became a municipal judge at one time. Anyhow, they got a picture of me and Judge Mayhall and another lawyer trying a case with 12 women on it. I think it appeared.
Okay, that was quite an event then. Okay.
Johnny got me a copy of it, and it sits on my desk.
Okay.
Me and Judge Mayhall and the rest of them trying that case.
Okay, Don, we're getting ready to wind up. Let me ask you this. Do you have any advice for a young lawyer starting to practice now? Is there anything you would, if somebody was graduating from law school, wanted to start practicing law, do you have any advice that you would like to give them?
I'll tell you what I would do. I would also, if they're going to practice in the criminal law, I would also get them to read Lee versus State. It's got a lot of and this is the most important because Lee versus State says that once a defendant gets on the stand and presents an alibi, he has the duty to reasonably impress the jury that the alibi is true. But the district attorney, the state, has the duty of proving the alibi false beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. This is the Lee case because I jumped on a guy that gave the indiscriminate testimony, and the judge charged the jury. Let me see. He charged the jury as the alibi could be easily manufactured and everything else. But anybody that practices criminal law, particularly if you represent defendants, be sure and be sure and be aware of the fact that if you represent a defendant, you only have to prove the reasonable satisfaction of the jury that your testimony is reliable. And if the judge is charged with anything, the old charge that this particular judge gave, and I'll tell you who he was, don't mind telling you, because I don't remember which one judge was, but anyhow, you got to be very careful when you prosecute cases. Be sure that the judge makes certain that you've got to prove an alibi unreasonable just like you have the rest of the case. You got to prove it beyond a doubt to moral certainty.
Okay. Don, I want to thank you on behalf of the Archives and History Committee for coming down today and allowing us to interview you. We appreciate it very much. And we have Barbara Rhodes, the Executive Director of the Mobile Bar Association here, and Margaret Turner, who has transcribed this testimony for us today. We appreciate very much her efforts in doing so. And we thank everybody for the participation, and we look forward to having this transcribed and the video prepared on it. Thank you very much again, Don.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all.